I know a few Joyces here. One's a writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see her.
She got my glasses. I never listened to myself.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
That was a jam session gig that I hosted right when the pandemic started. It was right before. I think it was my wife's birthday celebration, February 9th. And right after that gig, the whole world collapsed. You know, I was looking forward to inaugurating a new jam session series in Tacoma, and the musicians were all excited and everything. And now that whole restaurant is gone, new ownership.
Oh, really?
Whole new, yeah. Things have just changed, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's just so, so different. Oh, that I like that light on. Yeah, it's so different. Actually, I just got a call from a guy who I do. He has a really nice outdoor patio, and so I've been doing once a month. I've been doing a jam. So I'll play the first set, and then I'll have a jam session, and people are coming out to jam. But it's really nice. It's outdoors, real comfortable feeling. However, because the weather is shitty now, we're going inside. And he just called me this morning at 9, and he said, are you available New Year's Eve? Because my 2 guys just got sick. I was like,
Do I want to really do this,
Yeah, I mean, I I'm always like the person who takes the weird gig, like I worked in Yugoslavia during the war there,
Oh,
you know,
oh.
because I want to work, I mean, I'm that kind of.
Yeah, I was there right at the end of the war.
You're kidding.
Where was it? Skopje, Croatia, I think it
Yeah,
was. They have a
Croatia.
there's a festival, the Skopje
Uh,
Jazz Festival. I did it with David Murray. And we had an incident because our drummer was celebrating his birthday and he doesn't drink. And that night he drank and he kind of took off in the van with the driver when we were getting after the gig meal. And he takes off and goes to the hotel. He's looking all over for David, banging on the doors. David Murray, where are you? Where are you? So the whole establishment, they were getting ready to have some kind of conference, peace conference.
oh God.
International
Oh my
diplomats
God.
were there, and the guy throws a glass in the bar, breaks a glass. And so when we get to the hotel, finally, it's like pandemonium.
Oh my God. What a story.
Yeah, Croatia. I remember that. So where were you?
I was in Belgrade.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I definitely had, I went there for this gig in, I can't remember the hotel. It was like the highest class hotel you can have, right?
Right.
And I went there, and first my baggage didn't arrive,
Oh, no.
and I had to work the next night. So I had to work I'm relatively small, and I had to work in a woman who was about 200 pounds, her dress, because she had left it behind. And then what else happened funny? Oh, the musicians expected me to be black. I don't know why,
Oh,
but
a jazz singer,
yeah, yeah.
in
And so,
Yugoslavia.
right. And I came in and they were like, who are you? So they already had this attitude
Oh,
that I wasn't good. So I came out. We didn't really have time to even rehearse. So I came out, I counted off cheek to cheek, very up tempo. And then after that, I guess I was okay. But anyway, and then while I was there, the war escalated.
oh,
So instead of a month, I was going over, like 2 weeks over. And the owner of the hotel he was kind of like a mafioso, but for that area. And I could barely get out of there. And my tickets leaving from there were no longer good. So I had to leave and go somewhere else. And so I can't
not a
remember all the
premium
details.
hotel, right?
Yeah, I had to get on a midnight bus, to wherever I was going. And then I arrived, and I just wasn't used to going in that situation. I was used to going somewhere where people expected me,
Right.
So I had all this I'll tell you more about it sometime, but it was very interesting. It was very spiritual.
Mm.
It was a moment in time where I was crushed, and then I decided I didn't want to be crushed, and I was going to get out. And I woke up, and even though everybody said, "Oh, you're never going to get the money, you're never going to get, the ticket on the train," I did.
Oh,
And it was a cool experience. It ended up being really cool, but it was
well, the spirits were willing.
yes. But I really liked that area. Actually, the geography reminded me of Boston, and it was very kind of humid and lots of green, and the people were, the beautiful. I mean, the war wasn't because of the people, right?
Right, right.
Just crappy stuff.
Yeah, centuries old crappy stuff.
Yeah, man. Yep. And also CNN, that was the first time I realized that CNN was not that hip, because they were staying at my hotel, and the people from the UN, the soldiers, were coming into the lounge. So I knew what was going on from listening and asking questions, and CNN would report that much of the truth just so that they could kind of look good.
Right, right. Show their presence.
Yeah, yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah,
But that's funny that we were there at around the same time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I kind of, it was like a flash in the night for me, because, on the
Yeah.
trains, off the trains. And David, he keeps up a hectic schedule, Murray. So.
Yeah, yeah. Um, how long did you work with Dave Murray, or are you still?
No, this was 2000, 2001. I was spending a lot of time in Paris.
Okay.
And the way it started, I got my first gig because a dear friend of mine, Rasul Sadiq, a trumpet player, he's originally from St. Louis and then by way of Chicago and then New York, and he moved to Paris. So he had to get a hernia operation. And David had a gig in, where was it? Finland. And so I subbed for Rasul, and then one of the trumpeters dropped out of the big band. And so I took over and finished the rest of the tour and did some octet gigs. So it was over a summer period of time, but it was
Yeah.
wonderful. David just assembled such a great group of musicians when he
Yeah.
put together his big band projects and stuff.
Yeah. This is so great. And by the way, it's Joyce Glasgow who
Oh
says
yeah, oh Joyce, love Joyce. Yeah.
hi. It's so great. I mean, I've been doing this now for 2 years,
Oh, beautiful.
and yeah, as a matter of fact, you are number 377.
Ooh, I love those numbers, 3 and 6.
But it's so great because I get to discover people. And also, I think over the last few years, I mean, this may sound kind of silly to some people, but I realized how many of us artists and even just jazz artists there are on the planet who are keeping the planet moving.
Keeping the flame alive.
Yeah.
It's flickering, but it's alive.
Yeah, I think actually it's more alive even now. I mean, of course, I'm the hopeless idealist, but I really do think so. I think I've seen, I definitely because of my own personal experience and talking to people and listening and reaching out. But I just think that, yeah, I just think that music is shifting I don't know, the purpose of it, the responsibility of it, it's kind of shifting right now.
Yeah, or in flux,
Yeah,
which is the
yeah.
same as a shift.
And flux, of course, right? Because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
life and jazz reflects life and
yeah, yeah, yeah. And we reflect, our emotions on top of the life experiences of others. But
yeah.
here it's a problem of venues.
Yeah,
Having performance spaces. There are
yeah,
so few now, and because of the forced profit motive upon the venue owners and managers, where they have to dig into their food budget and everything at this crisis moment in time, it just
yeah,
makes it untenable.
yeah,
You
yeah,
have to pay for the door, and you have 100 musicians lined up, and so it's really I believe in the coming renaissance. I
yeah,
keep saying the roaring 20s
yeah,
are going to arrive again, and I hope and believe it will happen. But until we change the whole formula for how we set up our gigs and the stream of income, I just can't see how it's going to be workable, in the future.
yeah. I agree. And there
For
was
pure
somebody.
artists, for artists who
Yeah,
follow their souls and versus the trends and, that type
yeah.
of thing.
I agree with you. And a lot of times I will have a great conversation on this, and I'll just go, well, I'll be going back to this conversation, so I'll hear this again. But there was at some point a few months ago when somebody spoke of something like you're speaking and came up with I kind of saw this glimmer of the future, and it was different than I thought. And I mean, I kind of hold the thought and the wish that people whose forte is creating new ideas are going to come up with new ideas and avenues for us because obviously it's been a long time for the recording part of our lives to not be super productive for for cash, right?
Right, right,
The only reason I saved my CDs is because I go to Japan. That's really the only reason, because
right,
that's who buys them, you know?
right, right. And then the whole notion in the industry is you don't need to do a CD now. It's
Yeah,
if you don't have a CD, you can't play the festivals, or nobody's going to hear you on the
yeah.
airplay and the radio play. And so it's a real conundrum that we have to figure out, And
I know a lot of people are starting to think that they're just doing singles. And
yeah,
singles are cool. I mean, I actually did a few singles this in the last 2 years, but I've also been doing recordings and the like full recordings. I don't think that singles will get you into a festival,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Or build you much of a fan base,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Because I just did a single for a ska band, because I was with the Skatalites for 9 years.
Oh,
And I've resisted for years and years, because, my thing is finding my jazz soul, and just trying to reap the benefits of all these years of experience, right? And
yeah,
so I agreed to do a single. And it came out, and it's a big splash for a moment in time. And
yeah.
now it's like, well, that was last month. There's no call for any gigs or any re-ups or do-overs or do another one, or
Yeah.
turn into a contract for a record or album or something. There's just no momentum, no no tail to it. So
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying about the whole phenomenon of doing singles.
And that is the thing, the momentum is the word, because that, I mean, you sound, I got the whole vibe that you have been on a momentum from day one in your life. I just got that, like that. I just get that you're committed to the music.
Well, this is my life.
Yeah,
So jazz is my life. And
yeah,
sometimes I was on the mic not too long ago at a gig, and I said, I don't know what came over me, but I go into these spiritual things. And I
yeah,
said, I am jazz. I said, you're looking at what we refer to as jazz. It's my whole life. The way I approach life, business, relationships, everything is based around that concept we know as improvisation, an organization of beautiful ideas into melodies and pathways for stories. Because I consider myself a storyteller
yeah,
more than just an instrumentalist.
yeah,
Because I'm not trying to put together notes and patterns and learn phrases and scales. For me, it's a journey of adventure. I close my eyes. I don't know where I am. I don't think a chord changes. I don't want to think of time and space. I just want to see things that I haven't seen before, and explore relationships through music, through sound. But it has to have a melodic base to it. And if it doesn't have a little swing somewhere in the DNA of it, then for me, the magic doesn't happen. It doesn't work. I haven't done my job, so.
I love that. I love that. As a matter of fact, I mean, just as a little tiny side note, after 15 years, I'm actually moving into self-publishing a little book. It's really a philosophy book, and it's just my observations about how the same lesson in life applies to singing jazz and also to voice technique.
Yeah.
So, just as an example, communication, right? Communication is really a key in living life, and singing jazz itself, you have to communicate, just as you said, and voice technique. When I think of communicating, my technique improves.
Right, right.
So stuff like that. And it's not, I mean, I wrote about those things because I know about them. But the philosophy in the book is, yeah, you know about whatever you know about too. So look for the tie-in.
That's it.
But I agree. I think, jazz is religion. it's a religion because it brings you practice it and it brings you closer to God,
Yeah, it does. And I meditate. Well, I used to do it a lot more when I do my long tones when I'm warming up. And
Yeah,
it's basically a thing of turning blue, holding a note as long as you can, and then
yeah,
going on down the scale. And
yeah,
as I used to do that when I was living in a small little town, helping my wife take care of her mother, I would go into a meditation thing. And so, you know how with the Hindu things, it's like Om, Om. But for me, it's a creative thing, jazz. So I'm trying to be creative in my expression to God as I, God, God is here, He's within me. So you can get into this whole kind of meditation thing just from breath.
yeah,
Ah, ah. But for me, it has to be creative because
yeah,
I believe that the creator doesn't want patterns and scales.
yeah,
We
yeah,
want real melodies that are our own personal melodies, our own
yeah.
lives, demonstrated through art and music and life. So that's
And
how I can approach it a lot of times.
yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. And also, if you don't practice doing that, then you get out in on your gig and you're starting from ground zero.
Oh yeah.
So you practice
Especially for
it,
brass instruments.
right? Yeah,
You one day off and it just, well, 2 days off of my horn, it throws my whole thing off. I'm back to square one. That synchronicity, that oneness with me and my horn
yeah,
is off. So I
yeah,
have to, and then you have chop issues. I have chop issues and, just growing old, trying to deal with this instrument
yeah,
religiously every day, at least a couple hours.
yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
and people
Woohoo!
think this is all fun and glamour and
Yeah,
adventure.
eat a bunch of chocolates, then go play a little.
And get the adulation and the gift of just being adored and all that type of nebulous kind of things.
Oh, I have a friend here. He's a guitar player, but he hasn't played, actively for a number of years. But Roland Askeruns, and he said he just downloaded Captain of the Light Brigade.
Well, see, that was an experience and frustration for myself
Really?
because, yes, because what had happened, I was living on the East Coast, happily ensconced in the music world between Europe and New York. And my mother-in-law got sick. So we had to give up our lives on the East Coast and move to a small little town in Washington, Buckley, Washington, which has a population of 4,000 people. So we were literally there for 12 years.
Oh my God.
And one of us had to be around with her at all times. So it really just killed our whole lifestyle. I became like a hermit and just out of touch. And so after about 7 years of enduring that, I put my band together. I decided I was going to put a band together. And I went to New York and played a Vision Festival. And when I came back, I put my trio together. And so I knew I had to make a recording, but I had only been playing, just practicing as a hermit in the crib. So when we recorded it, it was at a school. Our drummer, Brian Kirk, he's a professor at one of the colleges here. So it was literally like in a classroom with the low ceilings and the instructor for digital music, Lonnie Martis, he recorded it for us. And so it wasn't a studio or anything. So, and I didn't have like performance chops or anything like that. So it really was an adventure in just trying to put something together. And now I can't even listen to it. When I hear it, I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. I wish I could round them all up and just burn them.
Okay, Roland, you're going to have to buy something else.
And so now I feel like I'm light years away from that effort. And so I'm trying to plan a recording for 2022. And it's, you know, what you have to go through now. It's pay to play,
Yes.
artist-based labels, because no labels are signing any deals or anything, especially with someone, you know, over 50. And so I have all this music in me, that's because I'm a late bloomer, you know, so now here it is. And so I'm trying to figure out which label and, you know, that type of thing. And without finance, like they say, romance without finance don't stand no chance. Where's a new sense? That's the music business trying to record these days, you know.
Oh my gosh,
It
that's
takes
funny.
$5,000, you know, to
Yeah,
dance. And
yeah,
then you have to pay the artist.
yeah,
So that's what I'm working on now, you know.
yeah, yeah. That's funny. Um, hmm, yeah, yeah. It's a it's a real interesting process. Um, yeah, I've always been the person um, who creates venues, you know, and experiences. And I mean, I know on the one hand, I respect and know that everybody needs to be paid,
Yeah.
right? And me too. But I seem to have my focus on the like here the financial thing is kind of here, and the venue and the creative is out here. You know, it's a moving forward. So that's why I always create venues and stuff, because people need stuff. You know, people need to have a place to create and get out, and you know, it needs a flow, right? It needs a channel to flow on. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you ever heard about LA's the Blue Whale, the venue.
The name faintly strikes a bell.
Well, he closed during the pandemic, but he was open for 11 years, and a Korean uh, jazz singer who was my student. And one day he called me and he said, "Kath, I'm opening a club." I was like, "What?" This was to me, it was out of the blue. But anyway, so he opened the Blue Whale, and he was uh, he part of his intention was to have a place where creative jazz could be played. Mostly it was younger people, but not because he was only focused on younger people. It was just, it was that kind of genre, and it got internationally famous, and people, I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful club with all kinds of people playing there. Everybody, it was just it was a great hang. And that's really unfortunate that that's gone, but it did have a life for 11 years, and he opened it with a great purpose, and it was super successful. It was such a great environment, you know. There's a few there are a few rooms here these days, but it's kind of like Seattle. It's not a lot,
Well,
but there are
Seattle's
several.
on like the nonprofit route. This
Oh,
new model where you create a nonprofit to create a funding source, and
yeah.
then you can approach a venue or a proprietor and say, "Look, we'll pay
Can you
you."
hold on one second, Nathan? I'm so sorry.
Oh yes.
Hi, I'm busy in the back. Can I help you? You know what? I have to go. Sorry,
Oh, well,
ladies, and can you tell people something while I'm just stepping to the door?
yes. So Cathy is stepping to the door, and she shall return shortly. And so I was relating to the topic of new models for musicians to employ to get work based on this nonprofit model, where you create a nonprofit and you fundraise and you use the funds that you raise to pay the venue to hire musicians so that they don't have to enter into the budget of the food and all that type of things, and they can have an outside source of income. So I was just explaining that model of the nonprofit, providing source funds for small venues to be able to have live music. So you approach the venue and you say, look, this would be a perfect place for live music. We know you can't afford the cost of the musicians, so we'll step in and provide the funds for the musicians. And so that's become a working model around here.
Now, is that with organizations that already have, they're already working, like they're already...
Well, these are musicians who have recently created their own nonprofits and 501c.
Oh.
We have a guy in Tacoma, Kareem Candy. He has his world orchestra. And so he focuses mostly on students, integrating with professional musicians. And he has a series where he does interviews, live stream interviews, and then the artist performs that night at a venue. So it's a nice model. And then in Seattle, most recently, we have Thomas Marriott, one of the top trumpeters in Seattle. He started Seattle Fellowship, Jazz Fellowship. And so he found a venue at the Vermilion Art Gallery. And from 4 o'clock in the afternoon until around midnight, we have jazz there. So it starts off with a listening hour with Julian Priester. So Julian spins his records and talks about the interaction that went on in the studio during the recording. So people can ask questions and interview him and stuff, and it's a live thing for an hour.
Wow.
And then, then they have the first band presented, and they play a set. And then at 9 o'clock or so, the second band plays. So there's 2 bands and Julian. So that's every Wednesday.
Wow.
And it's a decent wage. You know, he's fundraised for a good amount of time and raised enough money to fund it for 1 year.
That's really thoughtful.
And so that's why we're trying to support it. So anyone out there, Seattle Jazz Fellowship needs money.
And so that's how we would find it, Seattle Jazz Fellowship?
Thomas Marriott, yes.
Wow, that's really thoughtful.
And that, you know, and so that's the way I see for the future.
Yeah.
But that's another pay-to-play situation where a nonprofit is what, $5 grand, $7 grand or so to get the 501c designation so that you can fundraise. Then you have to have a fundraiser, you know, because people say, oh, nonprofit, that sounds great. But until you have someone knocking on the doors and shaking the hands and begging for the money, it is an unworkable model, you know.
Yes, and then there's, you know, the administrative stuff of the nonprofit.
Putting together the boards and, you know,
That's what I'm not good at, you know. I'm
in the finance trail.
I'm good at the action, but I'm not good at the
money trail. Everything has to be documented and dotted twice and times, and so it's really a labor of love.
Yeah, it is.
But it's necessary now, you know, because like you said earlier, how you like to open up venues. Well, it's really impossible now to go to a venue during the pandemic and say, well, look, I want to bring my band in here. I have to pay my musicians $100 a piece. That's $400, you know. And so, we have another nonprofit speaking. There's another one in Tacoma that my friend Dennis Ellis runs. And he does the same model where he provides funding to the 2 or 3 institutions in Tacoma that provide jazz. So he needs money too for his nonprofit.
What is his nonprofit called?
What's Dennis Ellis? It's called the, wait. He sponsors a lot of my gigs down here. What's Dennis's nonprofit? Beach Shot. B sharp music.
Okay.
B sharp music. And that's the second one in Tacoma. And so those are and plus in Tacoma, in Seattle, you know, we have Earshot Jazz Organization with John Gilbreth.
Yes.
He's really literally kept jazz alive during the pandemic in Seattle through concerts, through donations. He gave, they gave donations to musicians. You applied, and he supplied 2 different set of funds, $1,000 for working artists. And that really, really helped us out during the pandemic. You know, so John Gilbreth, Earshot, they need money too.
Yeah, actually, I'm good friends with Jay Clayton, and she came down here and up there. She did the Earshot Festival for her 80th birthday. That was like 2 months ago or something. And it was.
She turned 80 already. How did that happen so quickly?
I know. Believe me, she's the first one to say, "What the hell? I turned 80. How did this happen?" But anyway, yeah. So she did the Earshot, and yeah, that's great. There's a few. Well, there's the California Jazz Foundation, of which I'm on the advisory board, and they are the foundation here that raises money for jazz musicians in LA who are in need. And they're great. And they, you know, I've known a lot of people who have gotten help. Rent, fixing your teeth, you know, I mean, just everything, you know. And yeah, it's just
They're doing everything Music Cares is supposed to be doing.
Yes, that's right.
My wife used to always talk about Music Cares and her hopes for them. And this is the Grammys.
Yeah.
You know, and I always told her Music Cares. I haven't seen Music Cares involved in any musician that I know that had problems live, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway,
well, it's a little like the Grammy, you know, organization.
I did that whole thing for a minute, you know. That was for the wife, though, you know, because I had 2 nominations when I was with the Skatalites. And so I wasn't even going to bother to go to the first one. She oh, we're going for sure. I've been waiting.
I think it's nice
just years for this.
I think it's nice to even just get nominated. I actually kind of like that even better than winning, because the nomination means that you're getting acknowledgments from your peers, you know. And the winning is a little different to me. It's like,
well, I never won, so.
Say what?
I never won, so.
Oh, Joyce says Jazz Foundation of America also seems to help musicians.
Oh, New York. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
What's
that's right.
That used to run it? Is she still doing it? The executive director? A wonderful lady. That's her name.
Oh, and Mark Smosson said Music Cares helped me pay for dental stuff for years.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Hey, we got a testimony.
Yeah. Yeah. And Wayne Horowitz has done a great thing keeping the music going.
Oh, he has a nonprofit too with the Royal Room.
Yeah.
And that is one of the venues that's currently keeping jazz alive in Seattle at the Royal Room. But it's been kind of restricted. It's a Sunday and a Monday night kind of jazz thing. And the rest of the week is kind of like just, I don't know what. Can't explain it. So I considered that like my home away from home pre-pandemic. I could just send an email, get a date, and, you know, I had to self-finance it, you know, a door gig, but it was a nice venue to play.
Yeah.
And so I sent one email a few months ago and no response. And so I don't know if they're just trapped into that nonprofit model now, because Sunday nights is Wayne's night, Monday night, Thomas Marriott has a jam session, and they have an early gig with some young musicians that play. It's a two gig situation. But those are both sponsored by nonprofits.
Wow.
It's really something, because if you book a gig there, there's no parking. And that's the whole thing. People don't
That
like.
is such a drag, especially if you're a musician. That is just a drag.
Like people don't want to come to Capitol Hill, and it's like, oh, there's no parking. I had to drive around for 15 minutes last time, 20 minutes the last time I had a gig there. 20 minutes waiting for somebody to move.
Oh man, that just adds a little bit on the top.
But, everybody's trying to come to Seattle as like the last refuge or something.
Yeah.
And they've displaced the whole real estate market, and the cost of living here now is the same as New York City. It's crazy,
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Because I'm living in Tacoma. I'm trying to get back to Seattle,
Yeah.
and the prices are just astronomical.
It's kind of like Nashville too, I guess. A lot of people I know are moving to Nashville, and in the city itself, the prices are high. But outside of the city, not that far, but outside of the city, it's just more reasonable.
Yeah, well, Seattle, it's spread.
Yeah.
Because you have these corporations, Amazon and Microsoft. They pay such a great wage to the employees that you can't even find a one bedroom for less than 1,400.
Yeah.
1,600.
That's like LA actually. And that's actually a reasonable price right now
we're
here.
talking closet. We're
Yeah.
not talking about, space. You're lucky to get one closet for that. And I was up for an art space. That's a whole nother thing in Seattle. They have these art space buildings, and one's in Pioneer Square. And I was up, finally, I was on the list for 4 years. So I go through the whole interview, the credit check process, pass everything. And so as we're going out for the last interview, we walk out of the front door. Right 1 block away is the homeless encampment. It had started right, and it grew all the way to the courthouse. And it was so bad for a while that the judges were in danger. There was a woman that was accosted in the restroom inside the courthouse. And so one of the judges was doing an interview with one of our press ladies, and one of the homeless people threw something and hit her in the shoulder, hit the reporter in the shoulder, and it was what was it? It was a piece of cauliflower. My wife just told me and he threw it so hard, she said it hurt and left an orange stain on her. So my wife, she walks out of the art space building and she sees the homeless encampment and says, no, 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 no. But when I was going through the interview, I asked the gentleman who was managing the building, how many musicians do you have on the premises? He said, 4, right? None of them were instrumentalists. They were photojournalist / musician, turntablist, beat maker / so no real artists in the whole building. And I'm like, this is supposed to be an art space building in downtown Pioneer Square. And there's not one single jazz artist. So that to me just exposed one of the holes in our system for artists. We're not considered artists.
Yeah.
And it's mostly photographers and visual artists. So anyway, that's something I'm working on in Seattle. I want to expose.
That's cool. That was something I always dreamt of since I don't know when, since I was in college or something, of having actually having the money or making it just happen, of buying a space for artists to live in. I mean, I know that happens in New York, of course, but
well, then that's the thing where you have to get the Manhattan Plaza. What was Manhattan Plaza?
I don't know.
Yeah, that was a thing that you had to be on the list for 5 to 7 years back in the old days. And then they were going through a thing in the late 90s where people were complaining about the musicians practicing. So they put all these strict regulations, and it was a nightmare. But Seattle definitely needs just a floor for musicians, especially aging musicians who are paid their time, paid their dues,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have a livable space
yeah,
that's, they can work in.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's great. I really do.
Yeah. So
So,
what was it?
where did you grow up?
Well, I'm a military brat.
Oh,
So I was
okay.
born, let's see, Madigan Hospital, Fort Lewis, Washington. That's about 50 miles from Seattle. And so I spent 5 years in the Tacoma, Washington, Seattle area. And then I went to Germany. I boarded the USS Derby with my brother and my sister Cynthia, and we went to Germany for 3 years. And so that's where I started school,
Hmm.
kindergarten, first and second grade. And then we came back to the state of Washington and then Memphis. My father's people are from Memphis,
Hmm.
Tennessee. So from the time I was 12, I was raised in Memphis because my father retired from the military.
Yeah.
And we went to Memphis and I got a piano teacher and, I was exposed, I played trumpet. I was given a cornet in sixth grade.
Oh, wow.
That's how the whole thing started.
Oh, that's probably not that common, right, to start on that?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's kind of a puzzle in my mind as to who came first, because I have this distant memory of being like in sixth grade, and because I changed schools so much,
Yeah.
every year and a half, literally almost my whole or 2 years, I changed schools every 2 years or so, and so my memories are fading for the early part,
Yeah.
but I can remember being in sixth grade and given a cornet, and I really adapted to it instantly. I had a sound. I can't remember not having a sound and not being able to play.
Yeah.
And then that experience was over. I changed schools and I had a piano teacher, and her name was Elmira Cole, Mrs. E.L. Cole. And she was the piano teacher for Booker T and the MGs, of the MGs. And so she used to give lessons for $1 a lesson to the kids in the neighborhood. We all my cousins and stuff, we all went through the route of Mrs. Cole. And I'd go with my cousin and my sister. Now, this is a story in itself. When I started playing piano, I adapted to it like a fish in water.
Huh.
I mean, like you have to pull me away from the piano. Once I got a piano, I would practice incessantly. And so when we get to the lesson, I'd do at least on the average 4 or 5 lessons. You know how you go and you practice, you do your one lesson. So my sister would go and she'd do hers, she'd get hit by the yardstick. Wasn't Dee Dee. She had been playing for like 2 or 3 years before I started, so I passed her in like 3 months' time.
Oh my God.
So, literally, I see it as, looking back, my real destiny was as a classical pianist. I love Chopin and the
Oh, interesting.
Romantic and Brahms, and so that was my early period. My first love for music was the piano, and so that lasted me until I got into the ninth grade and high school trumpet.
Yeah.
So I started playing trumpet. I was always near the front end of the section. And so by 10th grade, I considered myself a musician.
Yeah.
So at this time, this was during the 70s and busing, and, Martin Luther King, he was assassinated in like 3 months after we moved to Memphis in
Yeah.
April '68.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it was quite a change from a military brat raised in a mostly white environment, coming to Memphis and living in the heart of the city. And because my mother and my aunt went to see Martin at his last speech, the in
Wow.
the mountaintop. So it was within walking distance of church and the
Wow.
Lorraine Motel. And so that was my orientation to Memphis. It was like just thrust right in the middle of the movement.
Yeah.
And so when I got into music, they had the busing program, which was a novel experiment, and where they bus the kids from the projects into white suburbia, into the schools. And it was a disaster just in the making. So I was going to a school, and it was a beautiful suburban school, and, you know, just the best, one of the nice band programs, sports programs and everything. The busing experiment came in. In the middle of the school year, we had a riot. You know, the cops came, the black kids were on one side, the white kids were on the other side, the cops were in the middle. And so it was turmoil. So my mom, she was like, oh no, we got to get you out of that school. So she transferred us and changed our address so that, you know, theoretically, so that we could go to this other school. And so I went to Hillcrest my 11th grade year. And that was one of the most famous music schools for jazz in Memphis at the time. Under Jim Terry was the director. And so that just opened my life to jazz. That was my whole thing. First year, I played vibes, because when I arrived at the school, they had already picked the trumpet section. And the pianist, at the time was David Joyner. This is a story in itself. David Joyner, he was light years ahead of me. You know, he's like a prodigy. And David, to this day, lives not too far from me, within an hour's distance. He moved to this area about 25 years ago to take on the jazz responsibilities at Pacific Lutheran University. So he was a jazz professor out there, and then he just retired. So I have one of my close friends right here in the area with me. And he's a beautiful pianist. He, well, as a matter of fact, when we went to school, the pianists were Mulgrew Miller, Donald Brown, and David Joyner, and James Williams had just graduated. And for those who don't know, they all three, James, Donald, and Mulgrew, played with Art Blakey. They went on to great jazz fame and everything. And David went into the educational system. He's Dr. David Joyner. And so he had the piano chair. So, you know, that was out of my range. And so the band director requisitioned the school district for a set of vibes for me, a portable set of Deegan vibes. And so that was my first real jazz band experience. And we toured. To Romania. We spent 3 weeks in Romania. We went through Paris, and we were the terror of the jazz high school band competition, because we won everything we ever competed for. And my senior year, we were the national champions, jazz champions. We won the Mobile National high school jazz competition.
I can imagine that you were good at vibes too.
That's a sore subject. I hated this damn thing.
You hated playing it?
Yes. Because trumpet was my soul.
So
I had to listen to the trumpet section, and I love every one of them. But, you know, to give you an example without comparing talents. When we auditioned for the concert band, right, all the trumpets, not just the jazz band, I came in second out of all the trumpets. There was the lead player for the jazz band was called the Norseman, and there was me. So, but all the rest of the trumpets that were in the Norseman sat underneath me. And so I never will forget the lead player coming up to me and says, he says, do you mind if me and my friend Russell sit together, because we've done it together forever. They were the two lead players for the jazz band. So I literally displaced the trumpet section by my presence. So there was these two guys on lead, the two seniors. I was a junior. I had my own stand, and we all played first trumpet in concert band. And then the rest of the section, 30 trumpets or something. So that was my conundrum and problem. I'd have to listen to these guys, you know, and none of them were soloists, you know. And the girl who had my seat, I love her dearly to this day. Her brother used to write out her solos. You know, the whole band would sing the solos along with her, you know, when she played.
That's funny.
Beautiful spirit. So I endured for a year.
That's funny.
But then the next year, my senior year, I was featured in everything. So I got my compensation.
Yeah. And then what did you do after high school?
Well, I auditioned for, I had a bunch of scholarship offers where I was like a semi-finalist, national merit for, what is it, PSAT, SAT. So I got all these school offers, but none of them were realistic because my family, my mother and father had never been to college or anything. So it was going to be a stretch to go out of town to school. So I went to Memphis State University. It was Memphis State at the time. Now it's the University of Memphis. And so that's where I had a full scholarship, which I screwed up in a year. But I never will forget our audition, you know. We had for the pianist, like I said, James Williams was in the room, Mulgrew, Donald Brown. It was just miracle times. So that was my start. Well, I'm going to have to take a pause here for 2 minutes.
I'm going to play some music while you're doing that. Okay.
I shall return.
All right. That was perfect timing because I have to take a pause too. So let's see. I did that already, I think. And here we go. We're going to well, should we I'm not sure if Nathan is going to keep playing. I think it might. Yeah, so let's go somewhere else. All the Way. I love All the Way. So let's play Nathan playing All the Way. Oh, that was great.
Oh, it-
And who is the bass player?
well, that's Phil Sparks.
Oh, Phil Sparks. Yeah.
Yeah, he and I have played together on and off since 1986 or so. I had a band in the late 80s with Hadley Coleman, great saxophonist,
Huh.
who was originally from Oklahoma, but moved to Los Angeles.
Huh.
We went to school with Dexter Gordon, Jefferson High School. Eric Dolphy was a classmate.
Oh, wow.
Jim Farmer. And Hadley went on to become one of the greatest tenor saxophone players we had in jazz. You know?
Wow.
He was known as Dexter Jr.
Wow.
Maxine Gordon finished Dexter's book after Dexter had been working on it for many years. She had a book signing here in Seattle right before the pandemic, and she called John Gilbreth at Earshot and said, "I want some music." So John called me, and we put together this show for her. And it was really wonderful seeing her, because I had met her in New York, you know. And so we had had a few dealings with each other.
Cool. And who's on drums here?
Oh, that's Brian Kirk,
Okay.
Captain Kirk. He's originally from Naptown, Indianapolis.
Uh-huh.
He was in San Francisco, he was raised, and then he did the New York thing. He's one of the top drummers in Seattle and educated.
Oh.
And we were trying to figure out, he's done the New York thing too, you know.
Yeah.
So we were in New York during the 90s, and I was going through my card box and I found 2 cards from Brian. I said, so we met 2 separate times, and I'm trying to figure out. We've been together almost 7 years.
Oh, wow. By the way, I love this song so much.
Oh, me too, me too. Frank.
Man, you sure play nice.
Oh, thank you.
Whew, man, that is just so good. I just wanted to read the lyrics to this song because, it's really so good. I had a dear friend, this real character, Robert Walker. He was a slightly older guy. He'd been involved with Motown, various things, but he was always came out in a suit, the kind of guy, a suit and a hat. And he was a creator. We created venues and organizations together. And it wasn't until the very end of his life that I found out that he actually had very little money and, just it was a real different backup thing than I thought. But anyway, he was the kind of singer that you would have loved. He had this real rich voice and he was a real storyteller. When he would sing this song, I would just melt. So when somebody loves you, it's no good unless he loves you all the way. Happy to be near you when you need someone to cheer you all the way. Taller than the tallest tree is, that's how it's got to feel. Deeper than the deep blue sea is, that's how deep it goes if it's real. Oh, what a great line. When somebody needs you, it's no good until he needs you all the way. Through the good or lean years and for all the in-between years, come what may. Who knows where the road will lead us? Only a fool would say. But if you'll let me love you, it's for sure I'm going to love you all the way. I mean, that is just friggin' heartbreaking, isn't it?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, you know, I've been known secretly to sing a little bit myself.
Oh,
I've always been shy about doing it because I never wanted to get caught up into it, you know. Because when I was playing piano, I had a gig once, one weekend where I was playing piano and singing. And I was singing some of King Pleasure's tunes, you know, All of Me and stuff like that with the lyrics, all the lyrics and stuff. And I had an overwhelmingly successful weekend and it frightened me, you know. I mean, the tip jar, I couldn't even pull money out of the tip jar. And after that experience, it was like, I could see that trail. You know? I was like, oh no, I'll let the singers handle it. You know? I do want to try experimenting with it before I leave the planet, you know.
yeah. It sounds like it's probably great.
Oh well, you know, we all have our things, right? I did have the chance when I was in New York. I had a room at because my home was in D.C. at the time.
Yeah.
I was working in New York, and so I had a room with Evelyn Blakey, Art Blakey's.
Oh yeah, I met her in Japan.
Oh, you hit Evelyn? Yes, I
Yeah.
stayed there on and off for 3-4 years. You know.
Ah,
And so when I was in New York working,
yeah.
so she was the inside to the world of the vocalists and that whole world. And jazz royalty too, jazz royalty.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, she introduced me to just about everybody. When I first met her, she was telling me, she goes, oh, you just missed meeting the Baroness and going down to Bradley's in her Bentley, because she had just passed away. Yeah. But Evelyn was a character. She was.
Yeah, she looked a lot like her dad, didn't she?
Oh, didn't she?
Spitting image.
Oh, she was. You know, the guys would have jokes. They call her Booetta, Booella, because we call her Boo. Art Blakey Muslim name is Buhana.
Oh.
So shortened it to Boo. So they were like Booella for like Ella Fitzgerald. We had a whole bunch of them. But you know who Evelyn looked like and reminded me of, and she had a close association with, was Dinah Washington.
Oh. Huh.
Yes, because Dinah's pianist, who played piano for Dinah? I have a senior moment now.
I don't know.
I play with Art Blakey.
Okay, the piano player, I'll Google it. Piano player who played with
which one was he?
Pianist who played for who did you say? The singer?
Art Blakey.
Dinah Washington.
Yeah. Dinah discovered him. Wynton Kelly.
Oh, okay.
Because when I first, Wynton, according to Evelyn, was Evelyn's old man for a time period. And because when I first moved into her place, she has a baby grand piano. She said, I bought that for Wynton.
Oh.
Yeah. I really loved her. She was my little big sister, I call her.
Oh, that's cool, man. Yeah, you know who I'm producing a debut CD for is Paul Chambers' son, Pierre Chambers.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he's it's not that he's super young, it's just that he mostly sang in groups. And he's got a totally beautiful natural feel. He's a natural, you know, and I love the guy to death. And so I got a I got a straight ahead group for him because he wants to do standards, in
Oh,
a
beautiful.
little different. Do you happen to know Henry Franklin, the skipper?
I've seen him. I've seen him,
Yeah, he's gonna be the bass player on the project. I wanted to bring some statesmen into it,
Right. Right.
in honor of,
Some
yeah,
gravitas.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Um,
I didn't even know he must have been really young when Paul passed away.
yeah, he was, because he's probably, how old is he? I'm not 100% sure, maybe mid-50s, maybe something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Although I might be totally wrong, but
yeah,
at least somewhere around there,
yeah.
Yeah.
I was just reading some stuff about Paul the other day,
Huh.
because he was, we don't get a lot of information about his life.
Yeah.
It was short, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, I do know that Pierre's mother, they really loved each other, but Paul actually went to New York to live, and
Right.
they were in, I think it was Chicago, and a few kids, like 4, I think, siblings, and but I mean, everything was cool,
Yeah.
and Pierre's mother always said nothing but good stuff about Paul. It wasn't like, oh yeah, he's in New York and it wasn't anything like that. And yeah, and yeah, I mean, all the information I mean, of course it's all kind of personal information, but all the personal information was really beautiful
Oh,
actually
that's
about
good.
Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because I know he had fallen into the trap that so many cats fell into in the
Yeah.
50s, when
Yeah.
he got to New York.
Yeah.
It's a sad story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to hear some positive end out of it.
It is, isn't it? I have to play. Joyce said there's a video that she did of you at the Royal Room. So let's see what that is.
Oh, okay. Hi, Joyce.
So let's. Looks like the 5th anniversary. It looks like the 5th anniversary celebration, and on my birthday, 5/28, 2019, and yeah. So this Joyce took this. I wanted to ask you a question. The question is this one of your favorite groupings to have?
Uh, Not really. Not really. I experimented with the trio concept, like I said earlier, when I was stuck in this little bitty town.
Yeah,
I was just practicing. When I came out finally again, it was like I needed all the space.
yeah,
So I didn't want a chord instrument or anybody leading me or anything like that. I just
yeah,
want to just get it out, play.
yeah, yeah.
And now that I've got it out, and I've done that for almost 7 years, I have a pianist now. And so now I can just relax and not have to cover all the changes,
Yeah,
because that's the hardest thing to do, is just trio without a chord instrument, as you know, as a vocalist.
yeah,
Because once you stop, unless you have like a magical rhythm section, it literally stops with you.
yep,
you know?
yeah,
So-
yeah.
and so now I'm dealing with a hernia,
Oh,
and so now is the time for a pianist. We have some great pianists in Seattle now. It's a great time.
oh,
We just had Ron Perillo from Chicago, a wonderful pianist. He just moved here, and Jeremy Bacon. He's a recent arrival from New York,
oh,
and they could play. He and David Joyner. So it's like a whole new group of cats to pull from.
that's cool. Do you play with, do you like guitar too?
Not really.
Yeah,
Not really. As acoustically, I do.
yeah,
But I've had this thing with guitars for as long as I can remember. And I used to have some in my band when I had a quintet with Hadley.
yeah,
And it was, my experience is the ones that I experienced became bored after a while of being accompanist, having to strum away behind all these soloists. So that created a kind of a dissonance.
you're right, right.
So they'd always have to come out of the bag some kind of way. And it's like a tiger in a bag in a cage or something, and I'm like, hey, yeah, wait, And so trying to lead harmonically, that's the whole thing. When you reach a point musically where you have this direction and you really just want accompaniment, you don't want leadership, somebody chord leading or voice leading.
Yeah,
Something like that. So that really gets a thing for me, leave me some space
yeah,
so I can create my thing. But now, since I have a pianist, I can finally get to myself. I don't have to, like I said, compensate for all the variables and everything. It was a wild adventure, but it's over.
well, it's not over till the fat lady sings.
Well, I mean, as far as playing without a pianist,
Oh, okay.
unless I can't find a pianist.
Well, yeah, I remember my dad was a sax player, and I remember when he always had big bands, but he was very straight. He was like the union guy, and you know. Anyway, so I wrote a very sensitive ballad, and he called me up or he sent me a tape or something. Anyway, instead of, da 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 da, right? It was da 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 da. He wanted the guitar player chink chink chink.
Oh, right.
My mother just about died. She was like, "What have you done to her song?" But he thought it was great, right?
He couldn't help it.
Yeah, he was proud of, the whole thing, but but the guitar, I just remember his point of view was that chink 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 guitar,
Right.
where, my point of view is way different. It's like Bill Frisell and John Scofield and, the much more modern, space, very just the sound, the touch and the sound of the instrument is so different, that's what I like. That's the kind of guitar players I like. And I also like playing with guitar, with that kind of guitar, because it feels like my sound, the sound that I produce, which is more of an alto sound, is it goes well inside the color of the sound, that guitar produces, Um, but I do like the more modern style guitar players.
Yeah, I just that's for me. That's a whole. I try to stay in this acoustic shell.
Yeah, yeah.
But I did go see. I was given free tickets to go see Pat Metheny.
Oh, yeah, I saw him too this year, right?
So I did go. It
This
was
year?
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. It was a pandemic. It was like when we had a break during the pandemic, and he went on the little tour.
yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
when I
yeah,
saw him
I
too.
was there. I was there. And then I
Yeah.
have a friend who's a big, huge fan of Pat Metheny's, Charles Morris. He's a mercurial jazz aficionado and engineer here in the Seattle area. And he sent me all these Pat Metheny books and why don't you record some Pat Metheny? I got 3 different books of Pat Metheny. Just for you, Charles, I'm going to do a project. I won't record it, but I'm going to do a project and explore Pat's music.
That's funny. Well, I was amazed that he had all these hits basically, because, and I say that because the audience totally was there. They were singing, they were clapping. They knew his songs, which
Love it. And
I
they
thought that was
love,
very impressive. Yeah.
oh, yeah, he has
And
like a cult following.
yeah, and did you know that he actually lived in Brazil for a few years, and he actually, part of his music infusion was Brazilian,
Mm, mm.
which makes sense, doesn't it?
Well, knowing, and I just know him through my friend,
Yeah.
knowing that he's a true musical spirit,
Yes.
that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. You should check out, there's a few ballads. I mean, his ballads are beautiful. And when I'm on the road, like literally traveling, his music feels great to me. But I wrote lyrics with his blessing to a song called In Her Family, which is a really beautiful ballad. And then there's another one that actually Greta Matassa turned me on to, called If I Could, which is another, these melodies just pull your heart out of you, really, really beautiful. Um, so those two are in my book. I just love those two. Yeah, they're very, I don't know, they're the kind of melodies that I like, and ballads. They're just very, very emotional, beautiful.
Right. Well, there's so much music to explore, right?
Yeah.
So much. Like right now, I'm going through my Memphis period.
Oh,
I've really never explored the music of my friends growing
oh,
up, Mulgrew and Donald and James.
yeah.
And now I've taken it on as a part of me to explore and express their music. So I've been working on some of Mulgrew's tunes and a couple of Donald's, and I'm going through James's book trying to pull out a few. And so David Joyner and I are going to do a Memphis project.
Oh,
Taking it
cool.
to Memphis. Yeah, so it's
That
about time
sounds
to explore.
great.
Yeah, but there's so much music to explore, like uh,
Yeah.
tango, for example,
Oh, yeah.
Piazzolla. You know,
Piazzolla,
I love his music.
crazy good.
I love to play. I play along with some of the tangos. I'd love to do a treatment of that. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
and there's like I said earlier, I was with the Skatalites.
yeah.
People that don't know, that's like the premium band that came out of Jamaica in the early 60s, late 50s. They were a group of jazz musicians and recording artists, kind of like the
Hmm.
farm system that they had for Motown. And they
Oh,
did all the recordings. And then they put their own band together in 1962, from
oh,
62 to 65. And the band has like a following all over the world. And they sponsored literally the forms of reggae music came out of it and rock steady. But
yeah,
when you listen to the early ska, it's just jazz. It's for
oh,
me, it's like uh, Louis Jordan,
oh,
the jump
wow,
boogie
really?
ska kind of thing. And so that's where they pull their music out of. And so I didn't know anything about the genre myself until 1990. I was in New York, and one of my good friends, Joshua Roseman, excellent trombonist and bon vivant. He's a true Renaissance man. Josh asked me, did I want to go to California? He said, there's a ska band. And so we went to Newark, and, I was apprehensive because I thought it was going to be like reggae. And, reggae for being boring.
Yeah.
It has a spiritual kind of context too. But so I went and auditioned, and I ended up spending 8.5 years with these guys.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't really know ska music either. Yeah.
Well, there's the Skatalites and there's ska music. If you look at ska, it has become, it went through this English period. They put their imprint on it. And this had like 3 or 4 different waves they call the popularity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you explore it now, it just looks like a high school kind of noisy kind of music. But if you explore the Skatalites, it was their form of jazz. They were jazz musicians, and they changed the beat. And so anyway, that was a chapter of my life too. And the reason why I brought them up this time is I'd like to do a merger of that, the tango, along with some of the ska kind of rhythms.
Wow.
They're so similar, similarities. And the tune that I told you, I did a single for this guy, a bassist from Argentina. His name is Andres Carter. And so we co-wrote the tune. I wrote the melody, he wrote the changes, and it was released as a single. And I kind of put like a tango kind of melody to it. I didn't even really know it was tango. It just came out of me. And then I listened back, I said, this is tango. Yeah, like I said, there's so much music to explore,
Yeah. Piazzolla. I did like I guess I did it twice, a week jazz camp, and the band that I had there had played for Piazzolla a lot. And so the guitar player gave me several CDs, and that was the first time I'd heard of Piazzolla. And oh man, wow.
Yeah.
Music really takes you somewhere else.
Yeah.
And of course, he was first a classical player, right? And he went to Europe, and his teacher actually said to him, you should do your own version of tango.
Right.
I mean,
because he was trying to be a classical musician.
Yeah. And he was not well received by a bunch of the people in Argentina. Yeah, because he was doing his own thing.
Right. But the French love him, right? There's always the French.
There's always the French.
Yeah, that's when I got exposed to him, Paris radio.
Oh, that's cool. There's a Parisian radio station that my cousin listens to all the time, and the music is all varied, and there's jazz, but it's really a nice radio station. I forget the name of it.
It's just good music,
Good music.
I love,
My friend Roland would like to know if you've heard of Byron Lee and the Ska Kings.
Oh yeah, Byron Lee. Byron Lee was kind of like a competitive force to the early Skatalites, because there was a controversy. There was what was it, the World's Fair? I think it was, because the Skatalites were like the leading force during the early 60s of the music.
Yeah.
And they had to select who was going to represent Jamaica. And so, of course, it should have gone to the Skatalites, right? But because they were rough and unschooled and raw, they gave the gig to Byron Lee and the Dragonaires. So he represented Jamaica in the World's Fair. And the Skatalites always felt left out, because that was a big moment opportunity for them that they lost purely because of politics.
Yeah.
So that's what I keys to my mind when I hear Byron Lee, the name.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
It was interesting. It was an interesting gig. One interesting festival we did was the Kansas City Jazz Festival. It was the Skatalites and McCoy Tyner.
Wow.
Well, they had it was outdoors, right? And they had it roped off. It was in halves. Half of this field was lawn chair, people in lawn chairs there to see McCoy. The other half was like a mosh pit, roped off with all these kids like ready to dance to ska music. So that to me was creative marketing. That's the way you put together a festival, you know. And boy loved the music. Boy loved the music. He had sent word back that he was wondering who the trumpet player was. And so two of the saxophonists went to McCoy's tent and they asked did I want to go. And I said, no, you know, because I know how it is. You want to spend, I don't want to infringe on McCoy's time.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I was going to remind him of that. I saw him. He popped in a jam session. I was playing in New York. And I just played. McCoy came in. And I was trying to talk to him a little bit. And he just kind of grunted. That was the end of the conversation. Oh, yeah. But I saw McCoy at least 6-7 times in life, you know.
Yeah. Who is as far as trumpet goes, who is one of your ideal trumpet players?
Well, my lineage is very, very small. Fats Navarro, Clifford Brown, Lee Morgan, and Booker Little. And everybody else is peripheral. So if any other influences are heard in my playing, it's purely me that's being confused with someone else. Like I did my first avant-garde record. It was called Captain of the Deep with Dennis Charles and Jamil Moondock on Aramite Records. One of the first critics, the reviewer said Don Cherry and Bobby Bradford, you know. And I'm like, I don't have one Don Cherry. At the time, I didn't have one Don Cherry. Bobby Bradford, I saw and met him once, and that was it. You know, I had like no avant-garde influences, period, because I was a bebopper.
Yeah.
Bird, Charlie Parker. I used to not even listen to Dizzy and Kenny Dorham sometimes. I fast forward the solos on the cassette so I could just hear Bird. So I guess Bird was really my main influence.
Yeah.
Aside from trumpet players. Because I want to play like I play like a saxophonist. I don't play like a trumpet player. My wife tells me all the time, you want to be a saxophonist.
I love your playing. I totally hear your lines and beautiful use of motifs and space, and yeah, just it's very, very tasteful, really tasteful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite writings as far as books, like that sometimes you'll refer to people to read?
Well, yes, I have one book that's spiritual in nature. It's not religious in nature, called the Urantia Book. That has been a book that has been a part of my life for 40 years.
How do you spell that?
Urantia. It's the most mysterious book on the planet because it claims to have no author. I know others in metaphysical books have made claims, and you know, because I used to study metaphysics during the 70s, because I was trying to always find the truth, the essence of the truth. So I started in UFOlogy. Well, as a kid, science fiction, of course. That opens all the doors, Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein and all the great writers and Niven. And so I was really, really into science fiction. And then I got into UFOlogy, trying to figure out the mysteries of unidentified flying objects. I had read every book published. And I used to spend all my time in dusty bookstores. And so as I started searching and researching, I heard this tale of a book that the manuscript was left in a telephone booth by aliens. So this was around 75, 76. And so I kept searching and searching around. And I'd go in bookstores and I'd get to whispering with this one older lady. And I said, this book I heard about, she said, left in a telephone booth by aliens. So it was kind of one of those weird things of the 70s. So then I found out the title of the book was the Urantia Book. And at the time, it was extremely hard to find. And, but it's basically, the claims of the book are from the spirits, that it is the book of Earth. The Earth's real name is Urantia, given to it by the cosmic leadership of our galaxy. And so it gives claims to being what they call the fifth epochal revelation. Okay, there's been the Adam and Eve and different types of epochal kind of events in our history. And so the book claims to be the fifth. The fourth claim, revelation, is the life and teaching of Jesus. And so, which is included, that is the last quarter of the book. So anyway, that is the most influential book in my life. And
Interesting. I have never heard of this book. This is really cool.
2018 pages. There's no, 2058 pages or so. That'll take 5 lifetimes to digest. And so this, I recommend this for anybody who wants to explore the possibilities of truth in the universe. So that book's influential, and I've gone on binges, you know, like I said, science fiction was major in my life. Literature, King Arthur. I'm a Arthurian nut. You know, I have every book ever published on King Arthur's legend. Yeah, and I had the privilege once of having a seatmate. I was going to London, and she was a specialist in art. She was an art, I forget the title, but she was a specialist in King Arthur's legends.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and her son had passed away, and she had his ashes. She was going to spread over, what's this, Jim Morrison's grave in Paris. So anyway, we sat up and talked about Arthurian legends the whole time. So that was a passion of mine. And history, prehistory, I'm really fascinated with. And, you know, just life and relationships and our relationships to the universe and the larger worlds and the smaller worlds, animals. I do on Facebook, I have features. I do like creature news or interesting things about the creatures of the planets and sort of things like that. Dinosaurs, prehistory, especially Neanderthal, this whole Denisovian new discoveries and all this type of stuff. So I'm deep into that type of thing, trying to figure out the mystery of our planet, our world, you know, but really the truth, you know.
Yeah.
The truth.
The 2 books that I have by my bed right now, of course, I haven't finished a few, but I was reading Overstory. I don't think I finished that book yet, or maybe I did. I can't remember. But that was really great. It brought into, it was a Pulitzer Prize winner, and it brought in basically the lives of trees and how they're connected. And, you know, it was great. It really gave me a really good feeling, you know, of being connected to the planet. And then I've been reading The Meaning of Life by Viktor Frankl, who was a prisoner in, you know, the Nazi camps. But it's a great book because it's not like an oh poor me, although he didn't not say what happened, but it was more about the strength of the human spirit and how you lived day from day, you know. And so it was very interesting, really a good book to read. And then the other one that I bought recently, I was in a store and I was totally drawn to it, was a book by of Chief Seattle.
Oh, I know that must have been fascinating.
He was cool. His speech was, wow, it's rare that you hear somebody who is in a position that is, of notoriety, who will talk about the vision of humanity and the responsibility of all people, not just, you know, as in the white man came and stole everything from the Indians. He actually said in there that before the white man came, the Indians had been changing, the tribes and the nations, that more younger people coming up were more hungry for things, and they greedy, and warring, so that the Indian nation was actually kind of on a downward spiral, as opposed to 10,000 years of really appreciating what the planet and life was, but yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. I was thinking, I was definitely Japanese and an American Indian in another lifetime. I'm sure I was something else too. I'm sure I was less noble too, at some point. But those two beingnesses for me are very important, very substantial and meaningful. The feeling of what that means, and connected to the earth and to people, and that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, I read recently, well, I guess it's been about a year ago, this book, this gentleman, is his name, Beckett. He was an alleged, he was part Black, African-American, or Black. Well, I don't use the term African-American much.
Yeah.
So I don't have too much connection with Africa. And he talks about his life. He was during the, I guess, what period of time? During the colonial period, he was captured by the Crow, and he became a Crow chief. And his story is one of the most fascinating stories I've ever read about the everyday life of the Native American.
Wow.
And what happened was he was captured, and he tells of a tradition how the Crow were one of the few tribes who would assimilate prisoners. Huh. And what they would do was line up the prisoners and line up the old ladies and widows who had lost husbands and lost loved ones. And they could pick out a new son, literally, to take care of them. And so he was and he was real light skinned, so you couldn't tell his race, and he could be confused with Native American. So she said he was her son that had been captured by the Sioux or the Cheyenne years earlier when he was a baby. And she says, he has a mole on his inner thigh. And coincidentally, according to the tale, he had a mole on his inner thigh, so he got adopted into the tribe. So he basically talks about how the whole tribal life was basically stealing horses from other groups. That was the whole feature, other than just survival,
Yeah.
The whole tribal thing of the guy with the most horses got the best women and the best wives, and so on and so on. So that by the way, he became the second chief in all the Crow Nation.
That in itself is really wild, isn't it?
His story is fascinating. Beckworth is his name.
Beckworth.
Beckworth. I think it's James Beckworth. It's one of the most fascinating biographies I've ever read. And they should do a movie treatment on it. And his name's been mentioned in a couple of frontier movies.
Oh, interesting.
A Crow chief.
That's really wild.
Crow chief in all the nation. Yeah.
That's
and he
wild.
traveled back and forth to Washington and met with, some of the dignitaries in DC at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated by that culture too.
Cool story. One of my guests last week was a singer. You may know of him because you've spent time in Europe. David Lynx.
No, I don't know David.
So David Lynx, really, honestly, I don't think he's that well known in America, but he's really a good jazz singer, very adventurous and appreciative of, both standards and bebop, but also of pushing forward into new zones. And he lived, I keep forgetting, he lived with a bebopper guy for a while. His family life was a little broken up. But you know who he lived with? And it kind of like you, when he was a kid, he found a book by James Baldwin and was so floored that he read every book that James Baldwin had written. And then when he was in his late teens, he's French, and he James Baldwin apparently lived in France.
Right.
And he was going to do a talk or a book signing or something. So David went and didn't get to meet him, but he heard somebody saying that there was a press conference right after. So he found his way over there. The conference was over, and David and his brother, I think, were just sitting around on the couch relaxing. And David went right over and sat right down in the middle of them. And you can imagine David Baldwin, like, and then this kid basically had read all your books, you know.
Yeah.
So he invited David to come and stay with him. And about a year later, it must have been when David was 14 or something, or 15, he called up James and he said, "I'm coming." And he brought his suitcases and he didn't leave for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
They
Wow.
even made a record together with James.
I think I
doing
read something
poetry.
about him. I read something about him kind of
Yeah.
recently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting guy. Yeah. But, very interesting upbringing. His dad and mom split up, but his dad actually created jazz festivals in the Netherlands.
Oh, wow.
So that's how David grew up.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he lives in Los Angeles now?
No, he lives in the Netherlands.
Oh, he's
Or
still.
I think he lives in France, actually. Yeah, but that was a very interesting conversation. I didn't really know him before. I just know people who knew him, and very interesting singer. Lynx, Linkx, David Lynx. Yeah.
I'll look him up.
Yeah, he's very active in Europe, extremely active. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get back to Europe. The wife and I, we were trying to plan a trip to go to Paris, and right before the pandemic, threw everything off.
Yeah, I used to love going to Europe, and then I got invited to Japan and started going to Japan every year for like years, and made records there and all. And Japan is very comfortable for me, like kind of like a second home. However, since I haven't been able to go back to Japan in the last few years, now I'm actually kind of craving Europe. It's because I always felt like, oh, Europe, it feels like it's a really, I don't know how to say it, but kind of part of you. It's like a breathing, it's very copacetic, it's very easy, right? The feel of the spiritual feel.
Yeah, I love Europe. I love Japan too. I've been there 4 times.
Yeah.
And, because I did a recording with a Japanese drummer, Yoichi Kobayashi.
Oh.
He lived in New York, and his nickname is Monkey. He lived in New York all through the 90s and absorbed the culture and the music and stuff, he and his wife.
Yeah.
And so he did a recording in 91 of like the Young Lions. And then he stuck me and Essie in there. We were the not so young Lions. And so it was Vincent Herring, Stephen Scott on piano, Essie on bass, Yoichi Kobayashi on drums. Philip Harper was on the session. Mark Gross played alto on the session. Graham Haynes, Achille, Haynes played the tenor saxophone. Bob Kinmoso played some tenor saxophone. So the record was really popular in Japan.
Oh.
And it won, like, you remember Swing Journal, the jazz?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this is what struck me as quite funny. On the cover, after we released the record, when I was in Japan, I saw the journal. Dizzy Gillespie was on the cover, and he had just recently released a record. recording, right? And so I'm
Yeah.
thumbing through the book, and I see our record has a gold seal because they have like gold seals for the, and Dizzy's didn't have a gold seal. And I'm like, what the hell? So we did a month-long tour of Japan to support
Oh,
the record. And I was the only guy from the recording that did the whole tour.
oh,
Because Vincent Herring did the first week, and then he brought over Mark Gross to do the last 2 weeks. Essie and Stephen Scott did the first part of the tour, and then he had a Japanese rhythm section do the last half of the tour. And so I was the only guy that stuck all the way through. But it was beautiful. I went all over Japan and stuff. We did like, what was it, 26 one-nighters or something, 27 in like 30 days or something.
wow.
It's crazy, yeah. So I
Um,
got to see a lot of Japan. And then I had a dear friend there who was she was one of the first women eye doctors in Japan. Her name was Yoko Shimada. And she recently died. She committed suicide.
oh,
And she was the eye doctor for drummers. She took care of Elvin Jones,
oh,
Art Blakey, and on and on and on, Dennis Charles. And so when I met her, it was through Evelyn Blakey. We were in Bradley's. Remember, Bradley's was the spot, the hang spot in New York. I
yeah,
used to be there every night, just about, when I wasn't working during
yeah.
the early 90s. And so one day I was there and we were all sitting at a table, and Dennis Charles, the great drummer, comes up to me, and he and I were kind of roommates on and off when he needed a crash pad stuff. And so he came up to me and asked me, could he borrow some $5, $10 or something? And so I just reached in my pocket, say, here, Dennis, because I had some money at the time, which was a miracle, and said, here, take you. And so she saw this. And so she said, when she told me later, when I saw the way you treated Dennis, that's when I became her friend. Because Dennis at the time was homeless. He was a junkie. Even though he had recorded with Sonny Rollins and all these cats, he was kind of looked down on by some of the community, like Dennis,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of ashamed of, Dennis. But Dennis and I, he's the first cat to take me to Europe,
Mm,
to play music and record.
yeah,
So forget all those other cats, right?
yeah.
And so she saw that incident and that touched her heart. And so I became her friend. So when she come to New York, she'd always buy me dinner. We'd hang out at Bradley's. And you should have heard the whispers in Bradley's. What's he doing with her? He ain't no drummer. Like she was a meal ticket or something.
Ah, oh my
I'm
God.
telling it all now.
That's funny.
What's he doing? So anyway, when I go to Japan, she always made sure I'd experience some of the real Japanese culture. She took me to the Kabuki theater.
Yeah, great.
She
Isn't that amazing?
so slow though. This is what happened to me. She gave me one of the little binoculars.
Yeah,
Because we were sitting up in the row seats, because it's real simple kind of seating, It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
elaborate cushion seating. And so I'm sitting there, and about 10 minutes later, I hear clink, clank, clank, clank. I had nodded off. The binoculars. People turned around. But anyway, that was the Kabuki theater. And so then she took me on this thing where they carry the log, one of those spiritual things, and they're carrying this log around. Huh, huh, huh. And it's like hundreds of Japanese around, and they just carry this log around in a circle and deposit it somewhere. So she took me there. Then she took me to the Tokyo Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
And they have a replica of the Eiffel Tower. She took me to the top tempura restaurant in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Every time I'd go, and then she'd buy gifts for my wife and stuff. Just a beautiful, beautiful spirit. So at the end of her life, she had a disabled daughter. She had 3 kids, 2 daughters and a son. And her disabled daughter, she decided to take to all the World Heritage sites. So she literally chronicled and photographed and made a little book. It's on Amazon somewhere.
Wow.
She took her daughter to Burma. I mean, all these World Heritage sites and stuff. And so it caused some conflict with her husband or something when she came back home, and she had broken her leg or something, and she literally became a prisoner at home. and something happened with her teeth. They had taken her teeth out. She couldn't eat. So her life became miserable at the
Oh,
end. So
God.
she committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that hurt me. Yeah.
Wow, that's really
Yeah,
sad.
she was one of the first eye doctors, women eye doctors in Japan.
Yeah, the Japanese people are very special.
Yeah.
And also, unfortunately, the suppression of women is very bizarre, and it's from a long line of heritage.
Yeah.
But I always really loved the artists and the people in the country, especially, because they worked on the land, and
the old lady stooped over.
yeah, man,
Up
they're
straight,
just so kind
have a
and
smile on their face,
exactly.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, really
I
beautiful.
love people though. That's
Apparently.
I haven't been to a place where I haven't loved people.
That's the perfect comment to end. Believe it or not, it's been 2 hours.
Oh, great! Because I got to go to the bathroom again.
There you go. Well, Nathan, thank you so much. Like I said earlier, I watched you and read, and I thought your vibration matches mine, like right about here. It's just like. And I just thought I have to talk to Nathan. I have to
happy to meet you. Like-minded spirits, right?
Exactly. Thank you so much.
When I come to Los Angeles, I'll look you up. Oh, I have a friend in Los Angeles. His dream is to build a jazz club in Malibu. He lives in Malibu. He has a complex right on the beach in Malibu. And my sister-in-law is the executive director of his or a CEO of his film company his wife has.
Okay.
We could encourage him to just get that dream going, because he's one of the top architects in the world.
Wow, there used to be a very hip straight ahead club called Pasquale's on the beach at Malibu. The bass player Pat Senator, that was his, and this was the old days, but Art Pepper played there, and we used to go hang upstairs, after. And it was a great club. And it's a great area to build a club, I think. Oh, well, anywhere is now, but that would be awesome. And if you ever come here and you want to play, I'll try and help you, create a gig. And
lovely.
Yeah, that'd be really fun to have you,
After the record, because I haven't done my seminal recording. I got avant-garde recordings. I have two straight ahead recordings, and a bunch of ska recordings, but I haven't made my record yet. So when the spirits are willing.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
The spirits shine on you and brighten your life.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you and your wife.
I will convey it to Robin, and she sends it back.
Thanks, Robin.
Bye-bye now.
Bye, Nathan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stay on a little bit. So, wow, what a beautiful spirit. Totally beautiful spirit. That was Nathan Breedlove. Wow. Breedlove. Yeah. That's like my friend Sonny Wilkinson. Sonny. Yeah. I'm just saying. So Thursday through Sunday, I'm doing archives. Frank Griffith is tomorrow, sax player, critic. Friday is Roberta Gambarini, great jazz singer. Saturday is Sina Eeg, also another great jazz singer who's, I hope, coming here still and playing in January. And Sunday will be Mon David, my friend, who I call royalty of jazz. And then next week, I wanted to tell you, I have some real fun stuff, but I'll just start with Wednesday, the 5th. I am having my band from Social Anthems Volume 1, which is my last recording. So Wednesday, I have the whole band on, including the guest singers, Mon David and Paul Jost. So that'll be Anthony Wilson and Josh Nelson, Edwin Livingston, and Lorca Hart. I don't even know how we're going to talk because it's going to be jokes and, that's a lot of people. So maybe I'll need a moderator other than myself. Who knows? But that's Wednesday. That's going to be fun. And then Monday, one of my favorite guitar players, who's been a favorite of mine for a long time, and I've seen him play, gosh, with Liz Wright and, very modern jazz stuff. He's really great. His name is Adam Levy. So that's Monday. And Tuesday, a woodwind player who lived here for a long time and then moved back to Kansas City, Matt Otto. And he's definitely another one of my favorite players. Oh, he's so good. So that's the live Monday through Wednesday. I don't know what you're doing for New Year's Eve. I possibly might have a gig. I know some people think I'm crazy, but I would like to do the gig. I just have to find musicians who would like to also. So we'll see. But whatever you're doing for New Year's Eve, have a great time. Happy New Year. Here's looking forward to a really interesting year. Love you all. Bye. Have a great